Hi everybody, we know the macro objective for unemployment is low unemployment or full employment, very much implying that when unemployment gets high, the costs of that outweighs the benefits. In this video, let's cover both sides, starting with the costs of unemployment. First of all, you have lost output. When there is unemployment of labor in the economy is operating within its productive potential, it's operating inside its PPF curve. And that means you don't get the maximum production of goods and services taking place. That's bad news for consumers and households. Their ability to access goods and services is lower, their living standards will be lower, and it's a constraint to economic growth as well if you're not maximizing production of goods and services. At the same time, government finances take a big hit. On the tax revenue side, income tax revenues naturally will come down, but also VAT revenues come down because there's less spending on goods and services taking place. That also hits firms' profits, so there'll be less corporation tax revenue as well. On the government spending side, we'll see more government spending on benefits, but also more government spending on areas to deal with the costs of high unemployment, especially the social costs. So for example, with high unemployment, you tend to see more riots and protests on the streets, so more spending on police services and the military to deal with that. You see crime rates go up, more spending on police services to deal with that. You'll see more government spending on healthcare to deal with physical health and mental health issues that come with high rates of unemployment. Also, more government spending on judiciary services too. We've said how crime rates go up, so more spending on the courts, legal services to sentence those who have committed crimes. But also you tend to see more family breakdown, marital breakdown when unemployment goes up, hence more spending on judiciary services. The issue here is that budget deficits tend to rise, national debt tends to rise, and that has implications on the whole economy if taxes need to go up to fund this extra increase in G that's necessary. Or maybe there'll be cuts to other areas of government spending in the economy. You can worry about the implications of that. Or maybe the governments have to borrow more money in order to fund all this extra government spending. And that comes with the massive opportunity cost of debt interest. So this is a huge concern. We've already touched on some of the social costs of unemployment. These are a really big deal as well, like greater homelessness, greater deprivation, more people living in poverty, crime rates rising, more riots and protests on the street, fractions between different groups in society, physical and mental health issues, mental health concerns like greater anxiety, depression, stress levels that can feed through to family discord and marital breakdown. The reason these are social costs is because they affect the whole of society. It's a burden on government finances. As we've said, greater government spending is needed to deal with these costs, and that hits taxpayers. So in truth, these are all big negative externalities that come with high rates of unemployment. Other countries suffer too. If unemployment is high in one country, other countries suffer because there'll be less demand for their exports, harming their economic growth potentially. Individuals who are unemployed, of course, lose their income source. Bad news for their living standards, for sure. That might drive them into relative poverty in a developed country, maybe absolute poverty in a developing country, a real concern. That can also then again feed through to those mental health issues, physical health issues, marital breakdown, family breakdown, not good at all. But also it might force people to be borrowing money in order to keep their living standards at a certain level. The danger with that, you're increasing the risk of bankruptcy and a big fall in living standards, homelessness concerns from that. Maybe the biggest concern with unemployment is that of hysteresis. What a point this is. This is when unemployment becomes long-term in nature. And the longer someone is unemployed, the more likely they are to lose their skills. So de-skilling takes place. Maybe their skills become outdated. Maybe new entrants into the labor force outcompete unemployed workers who have been out of work for a long period of time. The point is, as unemployment becomes long-term, those workers essentially become unemployable. And the real concern with that is twofold. First of all, these workers adjust to a life on very low income, maybe living off benefits. That constrains their spending power, a constraint on consumption and aggregate demand, harming short-term economic growth. But also, as these workers are unemployed for a long period of time, they become so despondent when they keep getting rejected every time they're looking for work, they eventually could drop out of the labor force, reducing the size of the labor force, reducing the quantity of labor, reducing LRES, reducing long-term growth rates. So hysteresis is horrible. It's a real constraint on economic growth, but also it makes all these other costs of unemployment far, far greater in impact. So this, you could argue, is the worst cost of high unemployment if it becomes long-term in nature. But are there benefits of unemployment? Yes, there are. Well, simply put, one of the biggest benefits of unemployment is that there is a greater pool of workers for firms to choose from. And if you speak to firms, they'll tell you they love this flexibility. They can then choose the most productive worker from that pool, which is great for the firm. It can keep their cost of production relatively low and keep their profit margins high. So firms will like that greater pool, that greater choice. But also then that'll be good news for the worker because they will be picked as the most productive worker, which should be good for their morale. It should be good for their happiness and also good for the economy at large if workers are ending up in productive roles for themselves. High unemployment should mean low inflation because with abundant labor, workers don't have huge wage bargaining power. That keeps a lid on wage rises, a lid on cost of production, and therefore a lid on overall rises of the prices of goods and services, keeping inflation low that way. At the same time, a current account position in the economy should improve. If a country has a current account deficit, high unemployment should help to reduce that because with high unemployment and low incomes in the economy, there'll be less spending on imports, less sucking in of imports taking place, and ceteris paribus, that will help to improve a country's current account position. But also, when there is unemployment, it takes away the stigma of being unemployed. So if a worker is unemployed, they don't have the stress, the pressure to rush back into work. They know they're not in a unique position. There are many others in the economy who are also unemployed. So workers can take their time, find a suitable job for themselves in that situation. Let's now evaluate whether unemployment is good or bad. So when do the costs of unemployment outweigh the benefits? Well, the rate of unemployment is crucial. Generally speaking, we say unemployment at the natural rate is fine. I mean, that's the best unemployment rate an economy can achieve. And usually in that situation, the benefits outweigh the costs. Whereas if unemployment goes beyond the natural rate, the other way around, the costs outweigh the benefits. The only time that's not true is if the natural rate of unemployment itself is very, very high. Then governments or whoever need to do something to bring that rate down. But generally speaking, unemployment at the natural rate is okay. That's the best an economy can do unless that rate is very high on its own. The duration is crucial. Oh my goodness, long-term rates of unemployment defined as when people are unemployed for a year or more. Deadly for an economy because the risk of hysteresis increases significantly and then all the other costs of unemployment can rise at the same time. So long-term unemployment is horrible, whereas shorter bouts of unemployment not as concerning. The type is crucial. It's very clear that structural unemployment is the worst type of unemployment, especially occupational immobility of labor, because that is super hard to fix and therefore can be very long-term in nature. You know, people don't just suddenly gain the right skills overnight. That might never change. They might then be unemployed for long periods of time, increasing the risk of hysteresis again and just generally worsening all of these costs of unemployment. Whereas cyclical unemployment, not as bad because recessions don't last forever, so that shouldn't be long-term in nature. And frictional unemployment, quite healthy for an economy as long as this isn't way out of control. If people are searching for better jobs for themselves to end up in more productive roles, that's quite a healthy thing to be happening in an economy. So structural the worst, cyclical, frictional not as bad. And then also lastly, the distribution of unemployment is key as well. The worst group in society to be unemployed is the youth. You do not want high rates of youth unemployment simply because they are more liable to suffer from long-term unemployment. Bear in mind, the youth don't have many work skills, they don't have much experience yet. So if they become unemployed, it's very easy for them to become de-skilled or for their skills to become outdated, for them to be outcompeted by new entrants into the workforce. They're at much greater risk of long-term unemployment and therefore a much greater risk of hysteresis and therefore could be a huge drag on the economy if that occurs. Again, all of these major costs of unemployment become so much worse for a long period of time. So youth unemployment is especially concerning, very deadly for an economy. So that, guys, covers everything you need to know with regards to the costs and benefits of unemployment. Hopefully that all made sense. You've taken it down. You're a master of this. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.